Hi there. Today I'm going to describe you the very first chapter of your book Flamingo. As you all know, or you have must have noticed it, that the first chapter of your it is irony that the very first chapter of your book Flamingo is last lesson. So first we will go to the writer of the story. Alfonso Daudet has written this story of last lesson. Alfonso Daudet is very famous for his is a famous French writer, and he has written many stories that reflects the middle class of France. And the background of the story is also Franco-Prussian War. You know, it is a story about 1860 and 1861. This time, France was known as France as it is now today, but that time Germany was known as Persia, and so that's why on the basis of that this entire story is about a war called Franco-Prussian War. So that time, now first I think we should know the major character of this story. So the major character of this story is Mr. M. Hamel, a French language teacher. Thereafter, he's a student named French, and then Mr. Waster, a blacksmith. Beside that, your story of this chapter goes like that there was a school in a Alsace and Lorraine district in France, where France and Germany were in continuous war with each other. Germany was winning and France was losing. In that area, Alsace and Lorraine district, there was a school where Mr. M. Hamel used to teach French language, and he was very chauvinistic in his approach towards his language. He has this firm belief that his language is the best language, means French language is the best language of this world. On the basis of it, a question will be asked from you: describe linguistic chauvinism. So you have to write down this answer in a manner that linguistic chauvinism is an emotion in which a person believes that his language is the best language of the world. Mr. Hamel was also suffering from this linguistic chauvinism. Okay, so he had a firm belief that his language is the best language. One day he taught his students, including French. French was his student. The names are very identical, French and French. You just keep this thing in your mind, that how you will write down French and how you will write down French. There is a difference between the story, sorry, spelling. So be careful about that. And one day he taught his student, including French participle, and he was about to ask question on the very next day, but as ever, the student had no interest in his French language. He used to find it very uninteresting and futile to enter or attend the class of French language. But he had to, as he was a student, he had to enter in his class and had the lesson of his language. Very next day, he was not in mood of going to the school. Rather, he decided to go to the nearby mountain forest and to enjoy the drills of the French army. But somehow then an idea struck his mind that if he will not go that day, there is a probability that he will be punished for two things. First thing, that he will be punished for not attending the class of French language, and beside that he can also be punished for not being able to give answers of Mr. Hamel. But somehow he started late from the school. He was in bit hurry because he had already had this idea in his mind that he had got late for this that day. So he started late from his school house. When he was on his way to his school, on the way he met Mr. Waster. As ever, Mr. Waster tried to stop French for a small talk, which he used to have daily, and he was holding a newspaper in his hand. On the basis of that, he said that French, go slow, you will get enough time in the school, you will get enough time there. But French was not in mood to listen to him, so he moved forward. Thereafter, he reached near the town hall. On the town hall notice board, all the good and bad news had come from that notice board. Again, there was a notice on the notice board. There was something stuck there. People were gathering People had gathered there to have a look of that news. That news had come from Berlin, and according to that, according to that, Germany had captured the area called France, Alsace and Lorraine, and they are about to get the hold of it soon. But since French was in hurry, so he didn't think about going to that notice board and to have a look of the notice board. So he directly went to his school. When he reached to the school, he found that the things were very unusual. Question will be certainly asked from there also. Why French found the things unusual in the school? So there was peace all around. No, there was no uh, commotion of student. Everybody was inside the class. He got apprehended. He got this fear in his mind that probably Mr. Hamel had started asking the question, and he is the next who is going to be punished. As soon as he entered into the threshold of the class, Mr. Hamel welcomed him inside the class and told him to sit down. As soon as he entered inside the class, he found that all the elders and the respected people of Alsace and Lorraine district were sitting in the class. He had no other way. He entered into the class, started having the lesson from him. His fear was not true that Mr. Hamel had started punishing his student. Rather, Mr. Hamel was in party dress. He was wearing that dress which he used to wear on the special occasion. He was holding a stick in his hand, but his anger was vanished, and he started taking his class and told everyone that it was not the fault of his wards who had not taken interest in French language. It was the fault of the guardians who did not let them have interest in that French language. Rather, they were much happier in the thought that they were taking care of their animals and their farms. Mr. Hamel told everyone that French language is the best language of the world. Everybody should listen it, everybody should hear it, everybody should read it. And one fact he also included in that country will can never be slaved which speaks his native language. So with that he was taking the class, and now up to now French has got this idea that this was the last lesson of Mr. M. Hamel. He was going to leave the school, who has been teaching in the school for the last 14 years, but he had no other way. Now he had developed some interest for the French language, but there was no way out. He had to leave that because from very next day German language was to be taught in the school. But then an idea struck in his mind that the Persian people will compel them to study German language, but how they will compel the pigeon who were sitting on the roof of the school? With that, suddenly a clock tower at the public square struck 12, and German army started entering into the class, entering into the city, and foot thumps were easily heard by everyone. At once, Mr. Hamel got filled with the idea and emotion of patriotism. He got up from his chair and wrote down on the board, "Long live French language," and this way he finished his class. This was the summary of the last lesson. I think I have tried my best, and you have been able to understand every bit of it very